Greetings. Welcome to the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track Buffy Watch discussion of season 2. We are very pleased, or at least I am, and I'm assuming all of my wonderful panelists are as well, very pleased to be here discussing the show in general, but also this particular season when I guess we could say, I was going to say, when they up the stakes, but I figured that was probably too, yeah. Then I figured that might be considered a lame pun, but I didn't say it on purpose. So in any case, we will get started with our discussion. Anybody? Oh, there's Renita. Hello, Renita. Renita is back. Renita joined us for most of the Supernatural Rewind. So we're glad to have you. Thank you. And if you would like to be like Renita and get to talk to us, just sign into StreamYard and then you can take part by asking us questions, answering some of the questions, commenting. Sometimes we get people laughing at us, and that's all fine too. But we're happy to have anyone who is interested, to interact with us to please do so. Now, the first thing I would like you guys to do is to introduce yourselves, obviously, but then also give our viewers and me, although I think I probably remember it from before, but let everybody know how you came to the show. For example, did you start watching it from the beginning? Did you watch it, later? After it had already been off the air and you caught up with it via DVD, as I know that's how Kevin did it, it's how you caught up with part of it anyway. So there are different ways that people come to the show, and I'm just curious how you got your start with it. And Kevin, we'll begin with you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am the assistant track director for the Urban Fantasy Track, working with Carol and a wonderful group of volunteers at Con every year. I am a big genre TV fan. I do podcasts covering shows like Winona Earp and Buffy and Warrior Nun and several others. Just love talking about all our genre shows. And my entry into Buffy, as Carol mentioned, knowing is that I didn't see it when it was airing, but very shortly after, I started watching it via those of us who are old enough to remember Netflix DVDs by mail.
I did not use Netflix at that way, but my mother did. So it is. I remember when it switched over to being a streaming service, I was just kind of surprised. But I said, "Hey, I've heard that name before." Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Stokes. I'm a fanfic writer for Supernatural, and all my stuff's on AO3 under Fire Sign 10, which is my other names there. I was a fan from Buffy from day one. I watched the movie, which of course is like completely silly and campy and ridiculous, but enjoyed it just for being silly and campy and ridiculous. But when the show itself started, I had heard that it was going to be very, very different. And I'm a long time sci-fi, gothic, horror, all that kind of stuff. And it cut my teeth on Dark Shadows and so on and so forth. So I was ready for it. And it fulfilled everything I could have hoped for. I just loved the entire show. As any show does, of course, there are weak spots and, parts that maybe aren't quite as good, but then the rest of the parts are just so wonderful. And I was really happy to be able to be a panelist.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you. Davior.
Hey, everybody. I'm Daviar Snipes, actor, a voice actor as well, coming to you from Canada right now, where I'm working at the Festival Theatre up here in Stratford. Normally, I'm a Georgia native, so glad to see you all, some of my Dragon Con aficionados here with me. I was one of those lucky folks who got to Buffy in its original run. A good friend of mine, Jason, shout out, got me into the show starting in season 2. Because all season 1, it was a show that he was raving about. So during the summer, we talked about it, and then going into season 2, I finally started watching it. And I was thinking about that watching season 2. It's amazing how the show kind of tracked with certain moments in my life. So to be able to talk about it now and kind of reflect on that is really cool. So thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, well, thank you for doing it. And that's a really cool way to remember it, I'm sure, to enjoy it again, but also to remember it.
Yeah.
Marks.
Hey, I'm Marks Pyle. I'm a filmmaker, writer, podcaster. I did catch Buffy when it first premiered, and I saw the movie before that, and I think I almost missed it. I think I was really busy with other stuff and didn't quite catch the buzz, and just like turned it on network television, and they were just like, "Come up next, Buffy," and I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, what?" And so happened just to catch it in time, and then of course got hooked after that. So
and the rest was history, right?
This is definitely one of my top favorite shows of all time. So,
as it should be. That's Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail C. Martin. I write epic and urban fantasy as Gail C. Martin, and urban fantasy male paranormal romance as Morgan Bryce. I did not get to watch Buffy when it first aired, just like I didn't get to watch Supernatural when it first aired, because I was chasing 3 small children, and so if it wasn't on PBS Kids, I didn't get to see it. So I am now, and not Buffy has always been a big hole in my geek cred because I didn't get a chance to see it, and so I have just binge watched seasons 1 and 2 to be on this panel tonight. And so I am really the newbie here, but I am now seeing where a lot of the pop culture references came from. Now I understand why Sarah Michelle Gellar was cast as Daphne in the live action Scooby-Doo movies, and catching up on some of those in-jokes. So that's a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here. Thanks.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And Renita said that she saw the movie first, and when the show was announced, she was in. So yes, I know I had a friend that was really into the movie, which she really thought it was hilarious and everything. And I remember watching that, and thinking it was amusing. But when the show started, that was for me, that was what I was looking for, and so I also did watch it from day one. So one thing everybody on this panel, except for Gail, has seen past this particular season. So sometimes we might be tempted to make references to things that happen in the future. So that's fine if we do it in kind of a roundabout way, but let's try not to get too far ahead. There could be somebody out there watching this who is kind of, watching along with us. So, I just want to try for us to try to keep some of our spoilers to a minimum, if that's okay. It's okay to say, well, we know this is going to be important later, and stuff like that. But in terms of, things that could be considered true spoilers, it might be nice if we didn't do that. Gail might appreciate it, and anybody else who hasn't. I mean, unless Gail just doesn't care about spoilers. I hate them.
I'm the person who reads the wiki and wants to know what's going to happen in advance. And for a couple of characters that I didn't like, I wanted to make sure I knew when they might exit stage left. So I don't mind spoilers at all.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, forget
Well,
what
all right then.
I thought I was trying to
fair game
for not sensibilities, but make it a little easier. So
not on my account, maybe somebody else, but no, I'm fine.
Okay. Well, and I think that one of the things that I've tried to do when I put together my questions is trying to take it one season at a time, because I do know what happens later on. I mean, and I might make notes in my notebook, but it's kind of like when you're doing these kinds of rewatches, I think it's important to kind of enjoy it as it's coming, as it's building, for what you're seeing at a time, because as many times as I've seen, the different episodes from each season, there's still something that I find every time that it's like, oh, I didn't catch that before. Or if I caught it, it didn't stick with me, you know. So I'm trying to do that and just you know, kind of take things one season as at a time, as I said, when it comes to the stuff I'm going to ask you about anyway. But and as I always do for these season watches, I would like to know, aside from the two-part finale, which will have its own individual discussion, what are some of your yeah what and as it should, right? What are you know, what were a few of your favorite episodes from the season, and was there one that you could have done without, that you just either didn't care for, or for you it just kind of fell flat in terms of fitting with the rest of the show, or you know, the narrative of this particular season anyway? And Kevin, we'll go with you first.
Oh, all right. Well, let's get the bad out of the way first. For me, it comes down to, depending on mood, either. Well, no, let's just go with it. Go fish. Okay, let's face it. That did not work very well, and there's some cringeworthy dialogue there, but that's what it is. But you know, obviously, after that, we came into the two-part finale. So, wowza.
Yeah, they were taking a break that one week.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we need an extra week to prep for the two-parter. Now, as far as ones, and all of you know it, if you've seen season 2, and any of you that are watching, you know how season 2 has some of the best episodes in the entire series. There are a few clunkers, but there are just some of the ones that certainly make the top 20 lists for anyone who's a Buffy fan. The one I want to highlight, because it's something I saw just in the last couple of rewatches. I mean, I'm always rewatching Buffy, as I've mentioned before. I get to the end, wait a few weeks, and start back at the beginning. And for me, I want to put a little highlight on dealing with, if you will, the foreshadowing of what's going to come by looking very much at Lie to Me. The episode with Ford and what goes on with Spike and all there. Because it's a real microcosm of Buffy's journey, especially in this season. You know, she's talking to Ford, the one who's got the terminal illness, and, you know, gets the vampires to come in with Spike there and all. And what it ends up is she is trying to talk to him about the fact that you may not have great choices, but you always have a choice. And how that certainly is what happens throughout the series. But then when you look at what's going to happen at the end of the two-part finale and the position she's put in,
right
there it is. Not great choices, but she has a choice she has to make. And she makes the one, again, looking at the bigger picture. So I just love in Buffy how often when you rewatch stuff, you get to see things like that.
Good point. And Carol, what about you?
The one episode I could have lived without would have been Some Assembly Required. Like, let's make a hot chick for my dead brother.
Yeah.
It didn't, to me, it didn't build into any arc. It didn't tell us anything new about any of our characters. It was, you know, I'm a fan of a Monster of the Week. Certainly on Supernatural, I really enjoy Monsters of the Week, and I do in Buffy too. But this was just like, it was kind of sad. You know,
it was sad, and it was kind of gross too when it comes to
it. Was. I mean, well, it was physically kind of gross, and then it was just kind of gross in this whole let's make a girl thing. It was just no, that was not good. Yeah, but there are a lot of great episodes. I think certainly for a fun episode, I liked Halloween. You know, with the costumes. That was just excuse me, that was just great. It's fun. Now there's a whole Monster of the Week thing, but it also pertains because we meet Ethan Rayne. And we, you know, everybody gets to display a slightly different personality. Willow gets to be sexy and confident. You know, Buffy finds out that being a beautiful but helpless person is not all it's cracked up to be. It's not even what Angel really wanted. So there's a lot, you know, we have Oz constantly going, who is that girl? You know, so that's a really great fun episode. And I also really liked, and this is pure story arc, no monster of the week, really. Well, there's a ghost, but I only have eyes for you.
Mhm.
I really love the tragedy of it, and I love the twist because we think Angel's going to be the one and Buffy's going to be the other, and they're not. It's the
Yeah.
other way around. They play it beautifully. This is where we're really seeing Buffy and Angel, Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Brands really playing well together. They've solidified their relationship as much as it kind of can be. They've admitted their feelings and they're trying to work it out, and it's just a hot mess. But, as actors, they're really gelling well at this point. And they play it beautifully. And that's it. It's really kind of just them. Well, you have the Scooby Gang trying to eradicate the ghosts so that everyone is saved and stuff. But the tight focus is on the two of them living out this story with a tragic ending. And it really mirrors their tragic, the tragedy of their relationship. And I think it's just really, really beautifully done.
Okay. Davior.
Yeah, yes. Season 2 is an awesome season. It is my third favorite Buffy season out of the 7. But it's in the top 3.
That's right. There you go.
I think for me, it's got 3 top 20 episodes because I had to have my own top 20 list for all the 144 episodes. For me, it's got 3 top 20 episodes. It's got Halloween, Innocence, and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. And for me, I think Innocence, episode 14, is truly the episode where the show leaps to its next level of what it will be for the remainder of its run. I think when the reveal of Angel being evil, because especially rewatching it, because you see them set it up so well. And I think for the most part, you're anticipating that Angel is going to die based on Buffy's visions, but you're not expecting him to turn evil and become the main villain of the season. And that is just one of the most brilliant things to happen, particularly with how much he means to Buffy at that time and what it does to her to have to take him on as the main villain. So, it's really when the show takes another level. So, yeah, so I would say those are my 3 best episodes, third best season. And I would say, Kevin, I'm with you. Go Fish is trash, man. And for it to come where it does, in that point of the season, when we've got this great momentum going, like it stops the season dead in its tracks. Now, it does go out strong, but to have that happen at the point of the season that it does, that's just bonkers to me. So, yeah.
That's a good point. Just that, it seems an odd place to have it stop. Yeah.
Yeah, we come to a full stop, y'all, at like a crucial point. So, yeah, it's crazy.
It was interesting to see a young Wentworth Miller. And I had forgotten until this rewatch, which the last one I did of the whole series, was about 4 years ago. But I had completely forgotten that he was in it. So it was a nice surprise to see him pop up in that episode. Marks.
So I would say, Go Fish is one of the worst ones or weaker episodes in this one. It really sunk.
I see what you did there. See what you did.
And I think to echo some of the stuff other people have said too. Well, for one thing, Halloween, it's hilarious, and I think it sets a new tradition of different some holiday themes, some just bizarre, funny episodes that will come later. And I thought it was hilarious episode. And then I do think Lie to Me is really the point where they found, I think they got the humor down, especially with Halloween, but then I think Lie to Me is where they get the drama down and they figure out how to balance that out. And, I think that helped foreshadow some things. I think like when you get in Ted, which could have been just a silly episode, but it got really serious whenever she thought she murdered him and stuff. There's some dark stuff there. And then with Innocence, of course, with Angelus and Passion with that murder, all those are really well done. And I love that Angelus, like we've seen heroes become villains in other urban fantasy shows, like the Winchesters, for example, and Supernatural. but I think the writers always hesitate to cross certain lines when they do that with the main characters. But with Angelus, they were willing to go there with killing a few important characters, and just him doing a lot of really awful things that he said and did. And I thought that was really bold of them. It makes Angelus really a memorable villain too. And it makes, adds an interesting arc for Angel. So yeah, that's my favorite episodes.
Okay. And Gail.
Well, I think that the episode that I definitely liked the least was Ted. In fact, I texted Carol and said, this is triggering me way too much. I can't watch this. And I had to quit halfway through because it was very upsetting to me for lots of reasons. But I truly could not watch the rest of that episode because of the domestic violence themes and the misogyny and how he treated Buffy and her mom. And what made me particularly angry in Ted was that Joyce heard from her daughter that she was that Ted had threatened her with physical violence, and Joyce gaslit Buffy. Oh no, I'm sure he didn't say that. Oh, you must be, why are you taking my happiness away? I mean, it was all about Joyce. And as a mom who's raised 2 daughters past teenage, I was done with her right then because she didn't stand up for her daughter to her boyfriend. And so that was a very upsetting episode to me. And everybody gaslit Buffy in that episode. And maybe we didn't use that word for it back then the way we do now, but I thought it was very upsetting.
Well, they were being drugged by the food, so that is one. That was. I guess that was supposed to be the reason why they were doing so. In other words,
the tranquilizer.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I didn't think aged as well as many other pieces. But the one I really liked was Killed by Death. I thought that was intriguing. It reminded me a lot of the Supernatural episode In My Time of Dying, where you've got a character who can see the Grim Reaper kind of entity because they themselves are kind of straddling the line between life and death. And I thought it was a very good episode. Now, remember, I'm watching this for the first time, so I'm not getting some of those nuances that you guys are. I'm taking things at this point at face value, so I'm not seeing some of the depths that you get when you know where things go and you've seen it before. But I am really loving the snappy dialogue. And so I love that. But yeah, those are my worst and best.
Okay. All right. Well, now let's talk about characters. And which character do you feel that you saw the most growth or change in, either, from season 1 through to season 2, or which one do you or maybe it's just within season 2. If you may say that they weren't really that big of a, they didn't have that big of a role in season 1 or whatever. And, but which character did you feel as though you saw some kind of growth and, it's not that they completely evolved into anybody different, but that they just are making some kind of a change, whether good or bad. And Carol, we'll start with you this time.
I'm going to go for the obvious, and I'm going to say Buffy. Buffy in the span between, first season and then through second season goes through enormous change. There's some very concrete things like, the maturing of her relationship with Angel. She loses her virginity. All of that alone is just a huge turning point for her. And we see her grappling with that in both the mundane level that any high school girl who's just lost her virginity is going to be dealing with, and the fact that now her lover has become this horrible demon.
Right.
It's like, oh, and she doesn't know it at first yet because he toys with her. So, with the end of the first season, beginning of second season, when she comes back and she's all snarky and, hungover until she smashes the master's bones and she kind of settles back down. And that's when she starts to take it a little more seriously. All through first season, she was kind of like, yeah, I'm a slayer, but, whatever. And now she's starting to take it a little more seriously. She's seeing that the stakes are higher. And then she goes through this tremendous personal transformation and has to deal, the whole back half of the season, she has to deal with the fact that not only is Angel not Angel anymore, but he's pure evil and he's out to get her. He doesn't want to just, he's not out to kill her. He's out to hurt everyone around her in any way he can. He kills Willow's fish. I mean, the scene where Willow goes in and her fish are all floating there. That's a man who's paying attention to details.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, she's got to contend with him being a threat to the town and opening the Hellmouth and all of this stuff, as well as her own, broken heart and her own feelings and, being lost and floundering. At the same time, she's got to be super together and put this evil down. And I know you said, so we'll talk about the end more on its own, but that's just a climactic, I can't even find the words. It's just so overwhelming for her. So we see tremendous growth from her, and it's not easy, and we see her dealing with the pain of it, but she does have to keep picking herself up and soldier on, and she does it.
That's our girl. Devier?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit left field, maybe slightly. Gail, great points on Ted. I wish we had more space in here to talk about some things in there, because the character I want to highlight is Joyce Summers. I think Joyce Summers goes through it in season 2, because what I like about what they show about Joyce is that she's a single parent who is kind of clueless and really trying to figure it out. She's trying to figure out, how do I be a good mom? How do I do the right thing and still have this professional adult life? She talks about, like, I've been reading all the parenting books and they say I need to do this. So she's really just trying to figure out. And then in the course of trying to figure it out, if she just had a normal daughter, she discovers through the course of this season that the cops are called to her daughter twice. She thinks at one point that her daughter has killed her boyfriend. She thinks her daughter at a later point in the season may have killed someone else. She finds out that her daughter has had sex for the first time. She finds out that her daughter, the person that she had sex with, is this crazy older guy who's like accosting them at their own house. And then she finds out that her daughter is a vampire slayer, which makes her think my daughter is now insane. And then her daughter runs off at the end of. Oh, sorry. Gail has seen that. Okay. Then daughter runs off at the end of the season. So it's like Joyce goes through it in this season. And I just love how we kind of see Joyce kind of try to grapple with everything and then have these moments where she breaks down, but there's still so much heart that Christine Sutherland brings to that part that I connect with her, because I'm with her in her struggle as she's trying to figure it out. So, and it really kind of sets me up of where Joyce is going to be in season 3 after all of this has happened. And now she's trying to deal with the reality of who her daughter really is. So for me, it's going to be Joyce.
Okay. Yeah. And, you're talking about just everything she's gone through, that scene with she and Spike sitting in the living room, and that is so funny when neither one of them knows what to say.
Yeah, get the hell away from my daughter. And
have we met? And he, anyway, yeah. Awesome. Okay, Marks.
I think Principal Snyder. No, no. The Buffy, I think, probably the most, but it's already been taken. So let's try to go somewhere else.
Sorry.
I almost feel like I'm going to let somebody else defend Cordelia if they want to, because she did change a lot. But I think maybe I will go with Willow, because she's matured a little bit more this season and kind of keeping on her path from last season. and I'd forgotten how much. Well, she started dating. She has Oz. She's starting to move beyond her crush or love interest or whatever in Xander, which is a good idea. and,
Yeah. Wise
and
decision on her part.
yeah. and of course Oz is a great character, and we also, I'd forgotten how influential Jenny Calendar was on her, and starring her kind of interest in magic and on computers. So yeah, I would say Willow's a good choice too.
Okay. Gail.
Davior and I are going to have to agree to disagree on Joyce.
I want to insert this question. See, I know the answer, but
yeah, I think we know one.
I think we know who Joyce. That is. Yeah.
Other than Ted, Joyce, especially after she pulled that John Winchester A+ parenting moment in the finale. You don't do that, and I think this is one of the things where if I'd have watched the show and it came out, I wouldn't have been a teenager, but I would have been a lot closer to that age. Now I've raised 2 daughters, and so I just watch Joyce and go, could you screw this up worse?
Just wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay tuned.
I mean, she was one of the people I looked up to divine her fate, because I couldn't wait. So we're going to have to disagree on Joyce. But in terms of who got yeah, I really don't like her. But in terms of who had growth, I was going to say Willow, because to me, she's the Sam Ganji of the show. You think she's mild. You think she's kind of clueless. You think she's a little too goody-goody. And then she'll be there with an axe to save her friends. She'll work the spell that put her in the hospital. She'll go above and beyond. She's so brave and so smart, and she's got so much heart. So I love that we saw Willow progress and grow. But since he said Willow, Xander's not my favorite character. My husband keeps muttering as we're watching it, can someone throw him through a window, please?
He is a lot more annoying this time around, I have to say.
On every level.
But for Xander, compared to where he started and where he ended the season, he shows up for his friends. He pulls some real brave moments that you weren't expecting from him. He shows up and he keeps showing up, and he navigates things even with Cordelia better by the end of the season than he did at the beginning. So while I think Xander's probably always going to be that man-child who's catching up, he did better this season. But yeah, Joyce, no.
I like it. That shall remain ever the description of Xander that I shall recall now is the man-child who keeps catching up. Okay. Kevin.
Well, the hard part about going last on this question, as we know, there's only so many characters. So
well, you can pick somebody that's already been talked about if you want.
No, and but I think I'll do a little for fun. Is instead of maybe the most character growth, for me, the most frustrating is also very similar to what Gail said for me, is Xander. There are so many times this season, where you think he's going to start to maybe go on a upswing, and then you get, bewitched, bothered, and bewildered. You get him going after Inca Mummy Girl, the whole relationship with Cordy. Saying kill Angel about every 3 minutes for the last half of the season in every episode. Mm-hmm. And then in that finale that we're going to talk about later, that
everybody's just dying to talk about.
What did Willow say? What does he say to Buffy? Yeah. Willow said, kick his ass, which she didn't. And there are going to be repercussions about that for a long time to come. So I think he's very problematic, which feeds to the great story. But I just think, on rewatches, it's where you sometimes get really frustrated. So he was certainly a very entertaining character this year.
Yeah, I think I was frustrated with Xander, and I think it's like the bravery element, like Gail said, does improve so much. He's got this weird jealousy thing of every girl that's a friend of his that always kind of drags him down and makes him
Well,
make bad decisions.
he still, regardless of his relationship with Cordelia, he still has that pining for Buffy. Like
Yeah.
he's,
Right.
I think he's accepted at this point. He will never be with Buffy, but it doesn't mean he still doesn't pine after Buffy.
Well, and he gets jealous about
very
Willow and Oz. So
Right. And he's like, yeah.
yeah.
And honestly, I love the love spell episode because I just thought it was so funny on the "Be careful what you wish for."
Yeah.
It was
It was
so
gold. It's
teenage.
gold.
Yeah, it was so
Cafeteria ladies running after him.
yeah,
Joyce was hilarious in that episode.
yeah, it was so teenage to, please let's people fall in love with me, and
Yep.
there you go.
Yeah, and then
The
Cordelia,
bully.
And what else is typical is that when Cordelia finds out that he had done the spell for her, I mean, because he wanted to affect her rather than anybody else, then all of a sudden it's like, well, everything's forgiven, from her perspective. And so that's kind of interesting because that's kind of the response that someone might have at that age. Sometimes when you watch, I think, the show, it's hard to remember that, yeah, these are supposed to be a bunch of high school kids, regardless of what they face every day and things like that. And it's like, yeah, they do kind of act like that. And when those of you who brought up Xander, when I was reading through my notebook and the notes from each episode, and when I was reading through Inca Mummy Girl, I was remembering that during the episode, he does ask her, "You've never been a praying mantis, have you? Or you're not?" And I'm thinking, no, but this is even worse. Except she's maybe not even worse, but still.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm done.
I was going to say, Cordelia is still, narcissistic and shallow at the end of season 2, but she gets a little less shallow and I guess from the sense that she sticks around. She has seen horrifying things and she sticks around, and she helps them in really terrifying, dangerous situations, which selflessness is not really her bag. So, and she doesn't even completely like them, but she sticks around. And I'm kind of looking at that going, you got a long way to go, but showing up is more than half of the game.
Right. And then what about the part where she, with Angel, and they were trying to do the reverse, rescinding the invitation kind of thing. And she was talking about, well, I had to change cars with my grandma.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, because what'll happen is she'll say something like that right after having done something that is kind of altruistic or, somewhat out of the kind of character we've been expecting from her. So,
well, she never took the rust stains out of her clothes when they were hanging on the the chain.
Yeah.
Well, and Gail, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kara.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Well, and Gail, you said "Killed by Death" was one of your favorite episodes, right? Was that you? Yeah, I think to me one of the best Cordelia moments was in that episode where when Xander is outside, it was in the waiting room area, and she just shows up, brings him a coffee, brings him a donut, and just sits with him. They don't say a word to each other, but in that moment, it just shows she was thinking about him. She was out in the world, and for someone who that was never her thing before, she was always selfish. To have that selfless moment where she thought about him enough to go get him some food and bring it to him, and then sit with him, and that was just a beautiful moment to show how much she had grown over the season.
Now, Renita has a comment about Cordelia and Xander here that was a big shock, and it's kind of funny when I with rewatching this, knowing or trying to remember how did it strike me the first time that I saw it, and I tried to remember. It's like, oh, did that make me say, oh my God, did that come? That was kind of a big surprise. So. Yeah, it was a pretty big shock for sure. Now,
kind of hilarious.
yeah, it does not seem to fit, certainly from the way things have been going.
But
Now,
that's high school, you know. I mean,
oh yeah,
that's high school. I mean, I'm not too far removed. I'm removed, but I'm not too far removed. It's like those things like that happen, where all of a sudden, why? How do those two people get together? And it's just circumstances, you know.
right.
Saved the world a couple of times. All of a sudden, someone looks a little hotter than they did before.
That's true. Makes you appreciate those that
Yeah, yeah,
who
yeah.
are around you. Now, one of the aspects of the show has been this whole idea, of course, for obvious reasons, of being the chosen one, of being, and we get to explore a bit, and it kind of began really in the season 1 finale when when Buffy tells Giles, "I'm 16, I don't want to die," and but then realizes that what it is that she needs to do. But we see kind of a progression of her, I think, kind of coming to terms with it, that she has this particular uh, that it's something outside of her control, because about halfway through the season is when we have the "What's My Line" episodes, the two-parter when Kendra shows up. And prior to that, she has had conversations with different characters, and then afterwards, after that episode, or those two episodes, she's had conversations with different people about what it means, her lack of choice, and it actually is addressed by the whole career fair idea in there. And but when she's talking to Kendra, it's almost like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean you're the Slayer? I'm the Slayer. So even though she is not too happy about it, from some of what she says to other people, and for good reason, she still, when she's talking to Kendra, it she seems to be a little more accepting of it, and she's almost mentoring Kendra in a way when she explains about how emotions, my emotions make me stronger, because Kendra's been taught by her watcher, oh, you need to not have any, you can't show emotion because it's a weakness. And I think that there were some very telling comments in there. And then when Kendra does tell Buffy, she said, you talk about being a Slayer, and this is all in those same two episodes, that you talk about it as though it's a job, but it's not. It's who you are. And Buffy asks her, well, did you read that in the handbook, or where did you learn that, the handbook? And she said, no, from you. And so even though she's struggling to come to terms with this aspect of her character, it seems as though she's working her way towards accepting it. And my really long intro to this question, because this to me is one of the most fascinating aspects, of the whole idea, because it's an urban fantasy trope, and it gets used in this show to, and well, I don't want to say an extreme. It's because it's what it's about. And, so we have all this information about what it's like. We see what it's like for her. But I guess my question for you guys is, do you feel as though she's progressing towards, becoming more, and I did not mean to do that as a pun, given the finale, but do you feel as though she's working towards really accepting this, and not just accepting it, but is she embracing it in any way? And just over the course of what we've seen in this season. Davior, it's your turn to go first.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I honestly think she's always embraced it. I don't. I think it's one of those things where for Buffy it is, she's embraced it. She just hasn't realized it. Because I think she embraces it in season 1 when she goes to take on the master, and she knows that she's going to die from this, but she does it because she has to do it. Because I think she accepts it then, and I think it's just this ongoing thing of this is who it's this self-deprecation. I think what she's struggling with more than anything in season 2 is probably, do I deserve this? I think that's something that maybe is at Buffy's core, rather than do I accept it? But it's like, because it is a weight to be the chosen one. And I think the biggest question you can sometimes ask with being the chosen one is, well, what is special about me? And I think that is showcased in the show when we go back and see Buffy in LA, but went through Angel's eyes when she's first told that she's the Slayer. And I think that person who she is then, when she slays her first vampire, is always who Buffy is kind of seeing herself as these first couple of seasons. Is even though I have this duty, it is, but who am I really? So it's kind of just the accept. I think she is the Slayer, but I think she is this personal doubt of, am I worthy, that she's maybe wrestling with, that I see through the show.
Okay. And hi, Jane. We're so glad you could join us, but I'm gonna skip ahead to Mark's here for just a minute, and we'll come around to you. We just started one of the very long-winded questions.
Did I get the time wrong? I thought you said it was at 6 o'clock our time. What, 6 o'clock my time? So I'm sorry if I'm late.
Oh, well, it's 8 o'clock Eastern. I don't know what time zone you're in now, so no worries, no worries. We'll iron that out later. But anyway, Mark's, go ahead.
Yeah, I think she is with that finale of season 1 where she kind of accepts that she's the Slayer, and I think what we see as the season begins in season 2 is that she's getting comfortable being the Slayer and more confident, and that she's fighting vampires, and she's at the level whenever Kendra appears that she thinks she's confident that, her different way of handling things, it might be a better way. A lot of Slayers don't last long, and she seems to be kind of bucking the trend a little bit. Because I think if Kendra popped in season 1 before the Master fight, I think she'd be like, okay, cool, you take over the season finale and I'm out of here. Yeah. But now she's a little bit more hesitant about that, and I think it shifts a little bit by the end of it, because she loses so much, right? And it takes a dark turn for her, where she wonders if it's worth all the loss. But for most of the season, I think she has accepted what she is. The big challenge she has to face is to accept that she may have to give up on Angel and just have to kill him.
Yeah, that's a harsh truth, right? Gail.
I can't help looking at Buffy through the Supernatural lens, because I've been a Supernatural fan for a lot longer and a lot deeper. And so the whole chosen one thing, in that sense, reminds me of Sam Winchester, who struggled for so long to this. I don't want this life. I want to be normal, and finally came to accept that he had a role to play, and he was good at it, and he had people around him who loved him to support him. Kendra kind of reminded me of a combination of Dean and his daddy's little soldier phase, and some of the hard-ass hunters they ran into early on in the season, like Gordon. Now, Kendra wasn't as bad as Gordon, but the very emotionless.
Yeah,
we're just in this to the almost robotic approach to, we're just out here to kill things. We don't really think hard about it. We just kill the things. And so looking at the chosen one perspective like that, I think that Buffy accepts it, but like Sam, she can't help looking in the rearview mirror and seeing the things that it's going to cost her. And her in the finale with Angel reminded me a lot of the episode in Supernatural where Sam finishes off Ruby after she's betrayed him. And so I can't help seeing those parallels. But yeah, I think she has embraced it. She's just understandably a little regretful for the road she can't take and what it's going to mean. And she's at the age where you start seeing where all the paths and choices branch, and you can't have all of the options at the same time. You're going to have to make a choice, which means you get door A, but you don't get door B. And that's part of being a teenager and making those adult choices, even if you're not the Slayer.
True. Yeah, thank goodness most of us don't have to deal with that, right? Kevin.
Well, the timing there is perfect, Gail, because very much, for me and many others, certainly when we look at the entire run of Buffy, I mean, this is very much the story of becoming an adult, of learning to deal with the things that you find out as you get older. Like you said, you can't have everything. It can't always be fun. You're going to be jealous of other people sometimes, and you're going to be very content at other times when you see what's really gone on around you. I mean, it is the classic tale of you don't know what you don't know. And certainly Kendra opens up eyes on that, dealing with what happens with Angel and her part in it, the idea of losing the virginity and dealing with consequences of all of that, impact on her friends for choosing to be the Slayer and what might happen to them. It's that story of growing up and how you learn your actions are going to impact more than just yourself. So, in the simple ways, she's embracing it. Yes, at different points we see her embrace parts of it, but almost every episode through the 144 episode run, it's her getting more and more aware and accepting some of those things, not accepting some others, not accepting the status quo sometimes. Watchers Council, some other things that are going to come. So I think that's where it's very fascinating. And we see a lot of it. Certainly it really explodes a lot here in season 2 because of the Angel storyline and it being so emotionally close to her. But it's that first step in that I think we're going to see a lot more build out through the rest.
Okay. Carol.
I agree that certainly at the end of season 1, she's forced to accept really that she's the chosen one and this is her destiny, but she's certainly not happy about it. And then, yes, I think, going back to that very first question, this is all part of her maturing through the season, is her embracing of it, her getting a little more comfortable in her own skin of being the Slayer. But she's embracing it, but she's certainly not celebrating it. It's not anything that is bringing her joy. It's not, she sees the need. She accepts her duty. But certainly throughout the whole career day and Kendra and all of that, where she sees that, yes, she's losing these choices, that it's still not the path she ever would have chosen, so she's coming to terms with it, but under a certain amount of duress. She's not, she never really has that option to quit. I mean, she has the glimpse of it with Kendra. Could she hand everything over to Kendra and live life not as a Slayer? But yeah, she can't, because it is her. It isn't her job. It is who she is. And that's a really difficult truth to struggle with, especially as a teenager. I mean, we as adults are still often struggling with our own truths of who are we and what are we doing and what are our choices and which way are we going to go. And so to be 16 and have all of that happening in a volatile environment and with all of this, paranormal, supernatural stuff going on, she rolls with it, I think, as well as anybody could, and many not as well.
Right. Well, now here is Renita's comment about that she thought Kendra was a good contrast to Buffy. And it's definitely set up that way that she's when Kendra and Giles start talking about the in this text, and they get all geeky about the stuff, all excited about it, as they should, don't get me wrong, but Buffy's a little jealous because she doesn't seem to share that side of, or those kind of interests. But Jean, just to give you the very short version of what this question was, is do you feel as though, like, over the course of this particular season, do you feel as though Buffy is working towards kind of accepting her role as being chosen? She has conversations with different people throughout the course of the season about what it means, and not that she's thrilled with it or anything, but she's come to accept it. But do you think she's working her way towards actually embracing it?
Well, I'm not sure that she ever really embraces it, and I'm not sure that she could, even if she wanted to. But I thought one of the most important things about season 2 was Kendra, because Kendra was so accepting of what she was, and she was raised. Her whole life has been revolved around the fact that she was a Slayer. So I think that's the big difference between Buffy and Kendra.
That's a good point.
Pardon me?
No, so that's a good point, that she was raised very differently.
Right, yeah. right. And so for so long, even Buffy's mother didn't know what she was. That she was the Slayer. So Buffy really, when she first realized what was happening and who she was and what her mission was, she had no one to talk to or relate to, because she didn't have Giles yet. Her mother didn't know anything about it. So it was it's really hard. And I think one of the things that Kevin said, though, really resonates with me. Joss was such a master of taking these huge problems that Buffy has, but reducing them to something that everyone recognizes. I mean, everyone goes through this kind of the same things on a much smaller scale, of course, and not having to go out and slay monsters every night. But growing up, it's just a difficult process. And Josh just made me, especially, able to relate so much to what she was going through, because it in a lot of ways it reflects what's going on in your own life when you're that age. And again, I'm really sorry I came into this so late. I guess I'm kind of at the tail end, right? You're just about
we're only on question 3. We got a few more to go. But no, that's fine. We'll work out the details, and
next time I think I'm probably 3 hours behind you instead of 2. So that was, I think, a mistake that and then of course next week going back to daylight savings or going off daylight savings time, so this could be even more confusing to me.
Yeah, it could be more confusing, and we'll live with it. I'll have to look it up. What is the time zone right now?
I was wondering, did they ever explain, at some point, why Buffy was never identified as a potential? Like, because with Kendra, what threw me for a second, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that they could identify potentials, because she's been trained all this time.
Right, her parents gave her to these people to raise that way. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, well, did the American branch of these folks just completely screw things up? Although the Watchers Council wasn't, Americans anyway, which we find out later.
That's right.
Gee, that sounds a lot like the British Men of Letters.
And
version of Kendrick's.
Hey, don't forget, this show came first. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But now, so for my next question, it's at this point in the series, through season 2, what aspect of the show is what you enjoy the most? I mean, what aspect of it, and has that changed at all since season 1? And let's see, I believe it is Mark's turn to go first.
Oh, I think there are 2 things about Buffy in these seasons and onward that always stand out to me is one is the way they expertly balance tone, bouncing between humor and drama.
Yeah.
Something could be making you laugh one moment and then tear up a little bit next because of allergies, of course. And
Of course, yeah.
and I think they did a fantastic job with that. And then the other thing is the characters. They just all these characters as they grow, they really become so iconic. If you watched it, is and ensemble cast of characters too. You know, all of them: Angel, Spike, Buffy, Willow, everybody, and people we haven't even met yet. Or you know, I still feel like I know them almost, and they did a great job doing that. And those are two things that stand out.
Okay, Gail.
I love the dialogue, the witty repartee, the snark. You know, that really stands out to me. And I'm a sucker for an ensemble cast and for found family. And so watching that change and gel as the characters grow and change is also fascinating. And seeing people find who they need, even if it's not necessarily in the places that they thought they should or would find it. So I'd say those two things.
Okay. Jean.
I think one of the things I liked so much about this season was Xander. I mean, so
you missed the earlier part of the
you
conversation.
already talked about Xander.
I'm feeling a lot better about my pick of Xander last season because everybody was like, "Oh, what?" So it's great.
He was such comic relief, and he was so earnest. I love Xander from the very beginning because he's such a he's such a nerd, and he's not nerd in the fact that he's an outsider, but he and Cordelia, how the whole thing that happened with them, especially that was it Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. That episode is just one of my favorite, and maybe you've already talked about this, but and it shows such a different side to Cordelia too at the end because she kind of tells off her mean girlfriends and says, I'm whoever I want, and that's you guys are all sheep. But I really like Xander. I just think he was I forgot in the later season someone said Xander was the heart of the group or the soul of the group. I don't know. In one of the seasons too. And he really was, and he tries so hard to get everything right, and that love potion just went so wrong. So,
it did, yes.
Yeah.
but at least we got to enjoy the result, even if he didn't.
Exactly. It was really funny. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I guess his use of comic relief in this season especially was something I enjoyed a lot.
Okay, Kevin.
Well, as a couple of folks have mentioned, I mean, the found family aspect is something that's always going to, mean a lot to me. It's such foundational stuff for enjoying shows like this. But the things that's going to keep me coming back to seasons and why I keep rewatching the show and so many else do, I think, is the realistic character growth that is going to occur over all 7 seasons. We're going to watch these characters have good days and bad, make great decisions, make foolish ones. And no matter what happens, though, when they get knocked down, they just get back up. Doesn't matter the odds, hellmouth, end of the world, how many apocalypses have they stopped?
Yeah.
It teaches us all when it comes to dealing with situations, all you got to do is dust yourself off. Getting knocked down doesn't matter near as much as getting back up at least one time more than you get knocked down.
Yeah.
And that's what's great. And the writing and developments that's going to occur over the course of it, it's from small stuff to big stuff. And as Marks was saying too, you can balance laughing in one scene and the next scene having your allergies have you crying all over the place.
Yeah.
Yes, the allergies come into play quite a bit. Yes. Carol.
Well, I concur with Marks that it's balancing the humor and the drama is just so, for one thing, it gives us relief, that things are so dark and things are so fraught, and everything. But you know what? Who doesn't enjoy a good mordant sense of humor? I've been in the emergency room with my husband, and then we're cracking the nurses up because we're making jokes, and it's like it's how you can deal with stuff sometimes is with the humor, and I think they balance it so well so that we get the break. Um, and if anything, we feel both of them more because we have the contrast. We don't get so lost in the drama that we start become numb to it, or so much comedy that it stops being as funny. It's that constantly refreshing balance, and so everything is deeper with that contrast all the time. And I think within the whole found family thing, you have that it's such a web of relationships. It's not just here's Buffy and John, here's Buffy and everybody. Like everybody within that, has their own relationships. So we see Cordelia interacting with everybody, and we see Willow's. So nobody is kind of like in a void, or it's just here's this static set of relationships. Everybody is constantly interacting with everybody else and in new ways. And when they bring in new characters, so this season we got Jenny Calendar, we got Spike and Drusilla, who is like, oh my gosh, Drusilla is a whole thing unto herself. But they bring in yet these new characters who are also then very involved. Miss Calendar, Jenny's not just with Giles, she's working with the kids. She's a big influence on Willow. Spike's affecting Buffy, but he's affecting Angel, and he's, providing a whole new set of snarky humor. And then there's Drusilla. So anyway, so the web of relationships is really fully fleshed, so that the characters are fully fleshed, but the environment that they're operating within is also fully fleshed. And so nothing is left, nothing is barren. Everything is fruitful, and it makes it constantly, and even through numerous rewatchings, enjoyable to watch over and over.
Amen. Davier?
Yeah, I think it's all of this, and I think the thing I will add is what makes this show so great are the stakes. There is always, and not stakes through the heart, but like the consequences that this show puts these characters through, that makes everything that they're dealing with so much more real and so much more connected to us as the audience. Because people like to what happened with Angel, how Angel turned evil, the death of Miss Calendar. I mean, let's even go to to episode 1 when she was bad, which we actually deal with the character's trauma from the battle that she took on last season. I mean, that was so smart, and to show that these things matter. And when a show has things like that characters don't just go through these epic challenges and then just walk away scot-free, but there are things that will linger on, and not only just in this season, but in future seasons to come that Gail will definitely talk about as we get there. But it's like, but yeah, these things continue on and give this whole show such a reality and such an investment for us as the audience that I think makes it so great.
Yes, I think saying that I think great is the way to describe it. So, just in general. Now, in the finale, we're gonna, and this is not only the finale question. This is something very specific about the finale. The Whistler character who shows up, and Buffy has found him over at Giles' apartment once, but then she goes back. And when she's asking him about what it was about the sword that was so special, what else did she need to know in order to have success, in this battle against Angel? And then she said at one point, she tells him that, well, I don't have anything else to lose. Well, after she's already walked out the door, he says, well, kid, that's not true. You still have one thing. Now, my question for you is, what do you think he was talking about? Or do we think it was something, is it something that just hasn't been revealed yet? Was there anything else that he could have meant that we did see in that episode that what did he mean is what I'm trying to get at. And Gail, we'll go with you first.
Well, and remember, I'm the one who hasn't seen further than the
Right. So exactly. Yeah.
the finale. So, I looked at it and took it as you have your friends, you have your family, you are still alive, you have, you haven't killed Angel yet. All of those to me were potential meanings of what he meant, because they still existed, ergo they could still be lost. And you don't know what you have until it's gone. So that was how I took it, from the perspective of not knowing more than what I've seen.
Okay. Jean.
I always thought that I don't know how much anybody has looked into Joss Whedon's procedure when he writes a series, but I done a lot of that, and I think the genius of Joss is that when he's writing a series, he doesn't just write 1 season, 2 seasons. He writes 10 seasons. He knows for 10 seasons what's going to happen in each one. So I think in a lot of, he dropped these hints that show up 6 or 7 seasons later.
Right. Yeah.
And all of a sudden you say, oh my God, that's what he meant. So, I guess I'm kind of skirting the question, but I'm really not sure. I would kind of interpret it as saying, you still got your life. I mean, you still have your life. You still have, I don't know whether that would encompass whether he meant you still have this family, of your friends, and you have your mother, but I kind of took it to make that no, you haven't lost everything yet because you're still alive.
Okay. Kevin.
I adore the 2-part finale, so I will go on for way too long.
That's going to be the next question.
So I'm just telling you, so you can all cut me off. You can cut me off on this. But no, as far as that particular point goes, the way I've taken it and enjoyed reading on some Buffy books and such is her believing at that point that Angel is gone. All that's left is Angelus. And with everything else that's going on, she has nothing else to lose. And that's when Whistler makes this remark, because she doesn't know that she still actually is going to lose Angel. And it's going to have to come at her own hand. So that's going to make it even worse that he was back. She saw him, and she had to make the choice to end him for the sake of saving the world. So she had much lower to go.
So she did have something else to lose.
Yes. She just
Carol.
Totally what Kevin said. Angel. That's what she had to lose. He knew she was going to lose Angel. And that was just, it was heartbreaking. It was just heartbreaking. But that's totally how I took it.
Okay. Debbie?
I'm a little girl at heart.
Oh, okay.
I think it's all about Buffy, and I think she loses it, and that is her will, her resilience. Because I think what we learn about Buffy in season 1, when she takes on the Master, even though she knows it's going to die, and I think what we see, particularly through season 2, and we will see ongoing, is Buffy's resilience is the greatest thing that she has, and the thing that she loses when she walks away from her friends, from her family, from her duties, from her calling, she lost her will. And I think for someone like Buffy, that is the worst. That's worse than death, because a Slayer, a death is death. Death, I'll save that line for later, Gail. But we learn something about death in Buffy later on in the coming seasons. But that's part of a Slayer's lineage, and Buffy is willing to die. She showed that already in season 1. So I don't think death is the worst thing that can happen. But when you lose your will, then what else do you truly have after that?
Okay.
Now, if
very
I
good.
could jump in on that, I think it's an excellent point, but I've got a follow-up question. I'm curious
Sure.
to hear from you on that one, Taviar, is
Please.
as we see throughout the whole 7 seasons, but certainly up to this point, it's Buffy coming to terms with all that's going to go on around her and not having good choices on some of these things. Choices, but not good ones. So she chose to leave Sunnydale here at the end of this season 2 finale. You see that as her, having been broken, basically? Or is that a choice to step away?
But I think they can go hand in hand. I think she steps away by choice because I think she has nothing left to give at that point. Because I think when she feels at that point, she lost the love of her life, she's lost her mother. And I think at that point, to walk away from your duties, knowing that your friends could now be in danger, I think that the people who have been with you the most through this whole ordeal, I think you do that when you've just lost your will at that point. Because to not even say anything to them, to look at them from a distance and walk away, knowing that she's the most powerful thing that can protect them. Yeah, I think that speaks to something that she's lost.
Okay.
For me.
Very good.
For me.
And let's see, Marks.
So I think this shows why people love the show, right? Because I think you can see things in different perspectives, and there's a lot of layers to it. And I think in this way, it's like, maybe that comment was just, what we would assume at the moment was just, you could lose your life, kind of thing. Or maybe he was able to predict, that she would have to kill Angel. And maybe that's the sacrifice and lose what she thought she already lost. Or maybe it's like, as we said, it's because she was going to lose, her family, lose school and everything, get kicked out and leave. I can't remember because I haven't started next season yet. I can't remember where she's in her mind place, if she's still slaying or not when she leaves, or she just totally gave up everything. But obviously she at least lost, her whole, her family connection, which was really what up to this point we feel like is what made her unique as a Slayer. What was maybe one of her greatest strengths as the Slayer, not going alone. But that's what's awesome. That's why people write books about Buffy.
That's right. That's why I have a whole shelf of them downstairs. That'll be on next month's thumbnail as my collection of Buffy books. But things about the show. So then for our last question is we will talk about becoming parts 1 and 2. There's a lot you could say, and we've talked about it a little bit, in general, but in terms of as a finale, what are, did you feel as though it was a satisfying way, heartbreaking though it was it a satisfying way to finish up this season? And everybody but Gail knows what's knows what's coming next, but it does have connections to what comes later on. But mainly you want a finale to do that. You want a finale to feel as though it has wrapped up the present season adequately, and that it's a good lead in to the next one. And from your perspective, do you feel as though becoming parts 1 and 2 did that for this season? And what aspect of it is, you had to pick one, Kevin, of it did you most like? And Jean will go first. That'll give Kevin a minute to think about it.
Well, you have to give me a minute to think about that too. Well, okay, it has been a while because I wasn't able to watch all of season 2 again. Refresh myself, but I'll just say this: as in all of the season finales, it made me want to come back, which is exactly what you want a season finale to do, to come back and see what's going to happen after. And I never thought of Buffy as having given up completely, just walking away. I just think she had all of this just came on her all at once, and the impact, Kendra coming back, and everything that's going on with Angel. I think she had to step away. I think she just had to do exactly what she did at the end of the season.
She needed a break.
She needed a break.
Kevin.
Even more so than after season 1.
Oh, where do I begin? For those who don't know, Becoming Part 1 and 2 are probably my favorite episodes, maybe of TV, period. Buffy impacts me so much in these episodes so much. As I said earlier, watching on DVD from Netflix, you get DVD, 4 episodes, send it back, get the next 4. I was enjoying myself right up through this point. But after watching this finale, like Carol knows, I mean, within an hour of watching that finale, I went on Amazon and paid an ungodly amount of money for the entire series on DVD because I knew I would be watching and rewatching it for the rest of my life. And that is no exaggeration. Watch it all the way through, wait a few weeks, start it again, because there is so much there. I am so excited for you, Gail, because you talked about at this point just being able to watch it and not being able to go deep on it naturally. It's just kind of washing over you as you see it. And there is going to be so much you are going to see on rewatches. That's where it's exciting for the new Buffy fans. Not that it isn't fun on first watch and on surface level, but there are so many levels. But back to the point. As far as the season finale and what it means to me, one of the things we see certainly in Buffy and in many of our shows, especially ones with found family, it's about the ensemble and the group dealing with the big bad or the problem at the end of the season to move you on to the next one. What is very much for me unique in this season is at the end, it's only Buffy. Okay. It's her when she doesn't have the Scooby Gang. The whole reason it works is she has the Scooby Gang, but this time she doesn't. No weapons, no friends, no hope. Take all of that away and what's left? Me. That is when it became more than just a TV show to me. That moment, that hero's moment, choosing to fight back and eventually having to kill the love of her life, folks, the love of her life, just to save the world. Soul crushing. That is absolutely soul crushing when you think about it. So where it goes from here is wonderful, but that moment to me is just something, and as we've all discussed, being able to build up to that after, 34 episodes at this point of the series is so true, and we get to see so much. So that is the moment that will always just be the plateau above everything else for me.
Okay, yeah, those last those few minutes in that segment that you're talking about, where she puts her hands on the blade when Angel goes, and she says me, and that's major stuff right there. Carol.
The whole, I think it's a fantastic season finale. It's amazing. It absolutely wraps up, brings all the threads from the season together, wraps them all up, concludes everything. And yet then we still have what's going to happen next because, Buffy's gone. What does this mean? Where does she go? What happens to everybody else? So it sets us up for the satisfying conclusion, and then yet we want to find out what's going to happen in the new season. So it does that stuff, really, really well. I really love the moment when Willow decides to do the curse again, or to undo the curse again, and she's in her hospital bed and everything, and she's doing it, and then all of a sudden she's like seized, and has that great moment when then she's like, and then she's like, rah, the power. And that's the first time we really see, excuse me, Willow manifesting like that. That's a very strong and, terrific moment. You just can't beat that ending though, where she's, as Kevin said, what's left? Me. I'm still here. It doesn't matter. I don't have all that other stuff because I'm here. And the heartbreak of watching Willow, the juxtaposition of the scenes is so great where we're watching Willow and we're like, oh no, we've been waiting for this great moment where he's going to be Angel again, but oh crap. And we see it coming. We know it's coming. Buffy doesn't even know it's coming yet, but we know it. And so we're like, oh no. And it happens. And then she has to do it. She has to do it and she does it. And it's, that line, close your eyes. That's it for me. I'm sorry at that point. And we see that actually in Supernatural at one point. And that's why I was like, oh, I can't do this again. It's just tremendously well written. The timing is impeccable. The performances were stellar. And it's really, really, really wonderful.
Davior.
Yeah, I Kevin, you set it up for us all. I mean, it is, it is perfect. I mean, those two episodes as a finale, because to what I was talking about earlier, just the stakes that the hero has to deal with, and the thing that stuck out to me so much about those two episodes representing the finale is that I've never seen something so well put to screen, or probably even to page, that showed the hero can win the battle, but at what cost? And because Buffy literally gives so much, and I think to that line that she says, "You still have me." She says that before Angel is turned back, and she has to kill. Before Angelus becomes Angel again, and now she has to kill Angel, which she knows she has to do to save the world. And it's kind of like, again, so it's like the show doesn't stop. Just when you think she's had the triumphant hero moment, they put something else there for her to still have to overcome. So it's not over yet. And so it's just this continual just raising of the stakes in the finale that doesn't end. And it's just, I just think that it's just profound what they do. To have that be put on a teenage female in that situation. I mean, it's someone who's still trying to figure out life, let alone how you put all of these things into into being a hero and saving the world. So I just think it's brilliant, and I think you couldn't ask for a better finale to a season.
Okay, Marks.
It was just same as everybody else said. I think it's great finale. I think there's a lot of good finales in Buffy, but this is the most powerful emotional finale for sure. And I think it's that scene of sacrifice was such a great mix of this heroic sacrifice scene with this tragic end to a romance with. I think I get like Mice and Men vibes a little bit because he's so like he doesn't know what's going on right there. He doesn't remember what he did, and she doesn't have time to explain it to him. She just has to like, oh yeah, it's gonna be okay, and then kill him and have him get sucked into hell. So it just adds another layer of tragedy to it all and everything. It's really great. There's a lot of urban fantasy shows that have similar scenes and they're great in different ways, but it's very hard to measure up to that payoff. The payoff that we have like so well paced throughout season 2, and then with the beginnings of in season 1 where we first meet Angel and start learning more about him. Plus, we got more Spike. I like Spike.
Yep. Some of us are on the Spike. Gail, take us home.
I'm going to make this wild assumption that Buffy does come back because season 3 is not Willow the Vampire Slayer or Xander the Vampire Slayer.
You will be surprised, Cam.
I think that what you really see is that saving the world is a thankless task. Her principal is terrible toward her. Her mother tells her to get out. She, I'm sure, feels guilt for the people like Jenny who have died that she wasn't able to save. She's had to kill Angel. It's a thankless task. And so I think that I don't think anybody goes into a battle, goes into a war to save the world. They go into it to save the people they love. That might be a parent, that might be a child or a spouse or a friend. That's who they're fighting to save. And I think that what demoralizes Buffy at the end of season 1 is that she has given so much and been appreciated so little. Not that she wants accolades or trophies, but just not to be vilified for saving the world, which her mother and the principal and the cops and everybody else have done. Is she's given all of this, and what does she get? Looked down on. I think my bet is that she comes back not to save the world, but to save the people who matter most to her in the world. And the other people, she has to get to the point where the other people's opinions aren't what's motivating her or impacting her. It's she's there to take care of the people that she loves. Now, I could be totally wrong with that, but that's what I took out of it as a first-time viewer. And I thought it was a very strong finale.
Yeah, we need to ask Gail every season, what do you think is going to happen next season?
I'd be totally wrong.
She's our canary. She's our canary.
Yeah. I did not read the wiki ahead except to find out what happened to 2 people that I really didn't like.
Is the other person, I know Joyce, is the other person Cordelia or somebody else?
No, I don't mind Cordelia. It was Principal Snyder.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll find out for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I love in the finale when she calls him a stupid little troll, because we're all going, yes.
I can't see him as anything except a Ferengi.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I know. It's hard to get that out of your mind when you see him.
Because he kind of still looks like it. Even without the makeup, it's the core of it is still there, and then he plays, the role, and it's like, okay, true typecasting.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if part of that was by design. That they wanted him to stay that way. I think one of my favorite conversations with him, and we all, nobody likes Snyder, but what's funny in the beginning, it's in one of the first episodes when he's going on and on to Giles about the kids and all this stuff, and Giles asks him, well, have you ever considered having another line of work, another vocation, since you don't really seem to like kids very much? And his comment is, well, somebody's got to keep an eye on them. And it's like, okay. But yeah, so he can be amusing, but at the same time, everybody who's watching it is saying, yeah, I think I knew, maybe it wasn't a principal, but there was somebody in a school that was, he's an extreme version, but that could have grown up to be Snyder, whatever. Well, people, we are to the end of our evening. I'm talking about season 2. And thank you so much to all of you for being here. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who is watching this. Thank you, Renita, if you're still with us. We certainly enjoyed having you take part with us, and we hope you'll be back for season 3. Anyone else who's watching, and not commenting, thank you. Anybody who watches it later, thank you. We appreciate you. And just to let you know, we are kind of dividing the difference between November and December for season 3, simply because the end of the month is not good in either November or December. So season 3 discussion will be on December 8th. So stay tuned to the track page, the track Facebook page, for reminders about that. But it won't be at the end of November. It'll be the beginning of December, and then we'll get on to season 4 in January. So anyway, thank you very much. All, you've been wonderful. I so appreciate all of you being willing to give up time out of your evenings to do this. And I will we'll just all say goodnight to the wonderful people who have been watching. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Hey, Carol.
Night.